Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the opportunity to use my voice to share my truth. I started this podcast when I was connected with the Akashic Records, and I was guided to my voice, my gift. My intention was really to simplify spirituality and guide people on their spiritual journey. And the message I get every week, I feel so blessed. This podcast reaches the people when they need it most, and I really feel like it's guided. And I get to channel every week. I get to do what I love by sharing my knowledge and guiding people. So thank you. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Thank you for your support. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. I hope you allow us to guide you, and any feedback you have, please let me know. Feedback is always a blessing. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And what I get to do is I get to guide people on their spiritual journey, holding their space, helping them to understand their true nature, and guiding people to letting them know that you're the gift, you're the light. Any modalities you have are part of your journey, but your light is important, it's needed. And I get to guide people to truly connect with their light. I love what I get to do. And part of this podcast allows me to connect with some beautiful people. And I'm excited to have Kellen on the podcast today. I met Kellen a few weeks ago, and it was in a public environment, and his light was shining so bright as, we were an audience. You could just feel his light. And I was excited to connect with him and invite him onto this podcast. I'm excited for wherever this conversation brings. Kellen, let's start with you introducing yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. And I was delighted at your introduction and the truth of who you are. I love that. I'm also a guide, a mentor, a coach. There's lots of words we use for that.
Sure.
And what's that?
I said, sure, yes, there's lots of human words and labels.
There's lots of human words, but the truth is, each of us has the calling and the desire to bless the lives of others, to live in love and light, to lift and bless those around us. That's why we're here. And when we're here, we go through all kinds of different experiences that sometimes challenge us and sometimes invite us to do stuff, to grow and to experience that. And so I use the word alchemist, ultimate alchemist. I've been called that. And alchemy is kind of a mix of science and magic, right? And I love those two ideas, things we understand and things we don't, to bless the lives of others, to invite them to their highest self. Because the true nature of us is divine beings, sources of light, beacons of light, vessels of love, conduits of power to add good to the world. And so in practical expression, I'm an author, I'm a coach. I help people find and live their highest truth and create from that place to add good to the world. And also, I use the words purpose, prosperity, and joy to define the ultimate life. So that's what I do, and that's all I do. And I write books, I write songs, and all of it is in service of that goal.
I love it. I love how you say that's all you do. That sounds like a pretty cool purpose to me. I'm sure there's so much. And that's why I always say my purpose is anyone I connect with, I want to leave them better than I found them. That allows me to do anything I want. Why do we limit ourselves to one? Why do we limit ourselves to one purpose? I don't get it. Life is for living. We should live it 100%. I love that.
All in. I love that too. And that's today, as I mentioned earlier, I'm starting another little process called a book challenge. And by the time whoever listens hears this, it'll be over probably. But it's just a process where I invite people in to realize that the best gift that each of us has to offer is the story of our own becoming. That journey that we've taken to go from where we were to where we are today, sharing that in truth and transparency and vulnerability is really the best that we have to offer, because everything else is sort of adjunct to that real journey. And that's something I get to do this week that I'm excited about as well.
I love that. So powerful. And, our story is important, right? It doesn't define us, but we brought into this world some karma we need to release, personal, ancestral, and I feel like everyone was going through so much. So your story is so, so important. I'd also say for me, it's actually how you've grown from your story rather than the story itself. So, and we'll get into your story because you've grown a lot from your story. But I do want to touch on something you started with, and that is, I feel like science and spirituality are merging. And in the
I
current
do
energy,
too.
yeah, as we talk about, I talk a lot about shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. And, the masculine energy is all about ego and all about kind of that being seen. And whereas feminine's all about the heart and shifting from I think to I feel. And this is where I feel like the energy is merging and, kind of deep truths are being revealed. So I'd love for you to just, as we start, talk about what you're feeling in the current energy, as we talk about science and spirituality merging and the current energy. And I feel like so many people are going through shifts. What are you seeing? What are you seeing in your world around the current energy and the shifts that we're going through?
I think that shift is absolutely underway, and underway isn't even the right word. It's happening in more and less degrees in different places in each of us. And there is one universal, we talk yin and yang and masculine and feminine, and it's all an expression of divine wholeness. All truth can be fit into one great whole. WHOLE, one great complete whole. And the different expressions have sometimes pushed each other out of the way. And we've lived in a world of proving and demonstrating and having and, fighting actually and spiritually for prominence. And it hasn't done well by itself, right? And the giant shift is an acknowledgement and an acknowledgement of the need for and allowing for the balancing energy, the nurturing, and we call it the feminine and good, that's centered around growth and love and help, not to the exclusion of the other, but to balance and to bring it. And I absolutely feel it. And people, nearly everyone that's any kind of sensitive person at all, is talking about it and feeling it and expressing it in different ways. And I think it's part of a cycle that's preparing us for a different kind of experience here. And I don't know how exactly and when that's fully, revealed, but I think it's happening and happening faster and faster. And I even think nature in its way, with some kinds of events and maybe even natural disasters, are calling our attention to this need to allow this shift and embrace it. So that's what
Wow.
I'm feeling.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel like the next 12, 18 months is going to be such a big shift. And I feel like our souls have been preparing for lifetime. So, but it's, yeah, I feel like the universe, our guides can only give us glimpses of what's coming because they don't want to freak us out too much. So, but I'm here for it. And, I just remind people that whatever you're going through, I don't feel the universe can give you anything you can't handle. And your soul chose to be here, and whatever your story is, and we'll come on to sharing your story in a bit, but just know that whatever you're going through, it's part of your expansion, it's part of your journey. So kind of you have I loved when we connected and you shared some of your story. I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your journey and kind of what brings you to this calm energy vibration you are today. Anything you want to share that's in your heart?
Yeah. The first thing I want to mention is we talked about this thing that's changing. And at the same time, it's a macro and a micro level. The micro level is what's in each of us. So each of us is always invited to embrace the unity and the completeness of energy. And at the same time, over a larger time scale, in my life of 60, 80, 100 years, whatever it is, things happen. And yet on a larger scale, 2, 3, 500 millennia, that shift is also happening. And so we get to each play our little bit part. That for us is everything, because it's the space of our experience, right? And it's in the flow of this larger thing. Anyway, that just went through my head as you were talking about, that change. I had a journey, right? Everybody has one. And my journey started when I was young and was taught and socialized a certain way. And my particular upbringing had a lot of violence in it. And I ended up feeling not good enough and struggled with that my whole adult life. Like I had to prove something and was stuck in a, pattern of depression and self-sabotage for decades, and felt like I needed to prove to my mom principally that I was okay, and never succeeded, even though I was very successful financially and in, corporate career-wise kind of stuff till I was in my 50s. And when I was 52, I'd, gone up and down that roller coaster a bunch of times and had failed at 3 different relationships and also had sabotaged several careers. And by sabotage, I mean actually done stupid stuff to get myself fired in different situations over and over again. And when I was 52, I had a situation where I was single again for the 3rd time. I had 4 kids living with me. I have 10. So 4 teenagers, 4 of my 10 were living with me as teenagers. And I was back, quote, at the top of making money and prominence. But my life was miserable. I was a deep, deep drug addict and struggling with depression and had attempted suicide a couple of times. And, like the divine does, it intervened, which it sometimes does, to offer us invitations. And the invitations consist of awareness of a different path, a different possibility. Like you're here right now doing this, and you don't need to stay there. And so what mine looked like was I came home from work on a Friday night in August of 2007. That's the year I turned 52. And I was that person, single dad, 4 kids, $3,000 a week, cocaine, other drug habits, and had attempted suicide a couple of weeks before for the 2nd time because I was so miserable and hated myself so much. And as I got home, I was going to go out to party because that's what I always did. And I had this urge to turn on the television, and I didn't know. That doesn't sound like anything, except I picked up the remote and realized I didn't know how, because I didn't watch TV. And, I bought it for the kids because they were all teenagers and we were the party house because I was a crappy dad. And so all the kids had their friends over. Anyway, I looked at the remote and realized I couldn't do it. And I asked my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, she punched some buttons and threw the remote at me, dipweed. And it landed on a program I'd never heard of. I don't know if it's on anymore because that was 18 years ago. It's called Intervention, and it's a reality TV show about families who stage interventions for busted loved ones, right? And the protagonist was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. So I watched my life for about 10 minutes, and I said, yeah, I'm not watching this crap. And I turned it off and did a few things, and then I was ready to go out, and I just couldn't. I was compelled to turn the TV back on. So this time I knew how, and that program started over. And I didn't have a recorder or DVR or whatever, and I wasn't on the schedule. And no, it can't do that, but it did. And so it freaked me out. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay. So I watched the program for half an hour, and it went badly. The guy yelled at his family and swore he didn't have a problem and stomped out of the intervention, kind of like you might expect. But anyway, that whole experience freaked me out. So instead of going out to party, I went to bed. When I went to bed, I went to hell. And what I mean by that is I went somewhere that felt out of body. I was in a large theater, and I was watching scenes from my life on the stage. And every scene was focused on suffering, the suffering that had been inflicted on me as a kid, a lot of physical stuff and some other things, up through the suffering I had inflicted on everybody else as a lousy dad and a drug addict and a pathological liar, and just all the stuff that I had been up to then. And after that went on for an extraordinarily long time, and watching it was intense, so intense I don't have language to describe it. But anyway, I heard a voice behind me on the right say to me very clearly, "It is enough." I woke up and realized I was freaked out. First of all, I was all twisted around in bed. Second of all, the bed sheets were soaking wet, and I assumed at the time that it was the intensity of the experience. But anyway, the thing that really freaked me out was the sun was shining in the windows of the bedroom, and the windows faced west. And I got up and realized it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So I'd been somewhere for 18 hours. And I got up and realized, okay, I've been invited to change. I have no idea what to do or how to do this or where to go or anything, because I'd never really gotten any help before. But I knew one thing. I said, well, I'm done. So I threw away $1,000 or so worth of substances I had laying around, because I always did, and I quit cold turkey that day. And that got me sober, but it didn't do anything about the depression and the self-sabotage and all the mental drama, mental illness and drama that got me there. So I went back to work on Monday, knowing that I had to do some more, but, sober at least. And I used to get a lot of free stuff because the position I had was very influential, and I made decisions that affected other companies, sometimes to the tune of billions of dollars. So I used to get a lot of stuff. Be nice to Kellen gifts, right? Tickets to this sporting event and, that sort of thing. And one of the things I got were a pair of tickets to see a Yo-Yo Ma concert. And if you know classical music, you know who that is. I was excited, but I wasn't going to waste that other ticket. And I sure as heck didn't have anybody to take. So I asked in the groups that I managed who likes classical music. And a woman in one of the groups said, well, I do. And I asked her, well, have I ever given you anything before? And she said, no, because I gave away stuff all the time. So I said, okay, fine, see you there. So I gave her the ticket, and concert was in about 3 weeks. So we met at the venue, and as of the concert, I'm now 3 weeks stone cold sober. The show was great, as you know it would be if you know the performer. And about halfway through the show, I had this feeling come over me that I recognized from 3 weeks before. And this voice said to me, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're flipping crazy. I said, I've screwed that up 3 times. I obviously don't know how to do that. So no, you're nuts. And so later that night, we were backstage because they were really expensive tickets, backstage passes and tickets to the reception and all that stuff. And the voice came back and said, yeah, comma, and you need to tell her tonight. Well, then I really went crazy because I thought, yeah, there's a couple of problems here. Number one, I don't actually know her well enough to know whether she's in a relationship. Like, I didn't think she was married, but I didn't know if she had a relationship. And the other thing is, yeah, she could have me like arrested or something for harassment or whatever, right? I mean, but you don't win those arguments. So I did clumsily, and it went about like you would have expected. Are you nuts? And she left. But the 2 good things is that she wasn't in a relationship, which I didn't know. And the second thing is she didn't call the cops or HR or whatever, to have me, committed. But anyway, over the next few weeks, she had her own set of experiences. And we had conversations, but about 3 weeks later, so the first part of October we are now, she resigned from her position. And I walked away from what then was millions of dollars of contracts. And we walked off into the sunset together, so to speak. And we've been together now in December. We'll celebrate our 18th wedding anniversary. And the thing about that story is, as crazy as it sounds, is she told me later, this is part of her experience, she was literally the angel that was sent to help me learn how to be a person, learn how to tell the truth, learn how to have a friend, learn how to be a friend, to help me do the work I needed to do to get healed and so forth. And the way that feels is, and she stood by me. She's my business partner now. She runs half of our company. She runs a publishing company, all kinds of crazy stuff. And we just started with those feelings that was just the right thing to do. And the most fun part, not the most, but fun part of this is her name is Joy. Like, you can't make this stuff up, right? And so that's the story of 2007 of what offered me the invitation to change directions. And those invitations don't do the work. They don't fix things, but they allowed me to see a path and help me with the determination to say, I'm going. I don't know what I have to do. I don't know how much broken glass I got to crawl over, but I'm going to the new place.
Wow, such a powerful, thank you for sharing that. Such a powerful story. It's just, I love how the universe has to shake our world And I love how the soul contracts work. And you clearly had a soul contract with that angel to come into your world at that time. And it's really interesting you say 2007, because that's that's also the time I came out of my darkness. I was guided. I experienced some dark magic, and it was that time that I was guided out of it. So definitely feels like the opening of a new cycle for the planet. So wow, thank you for sharing. And that's led, and you mentioned it earlier, that's kind of led you to really hold space for people to share their story. I mean, you've clearly got a powerful story, and we all have a journey in us, right? I'm curious where the inspiration for you to hold, I mean, you've written so many books yourself, but where the inspiration came for you to really kind of hold space as people shine their light and share their story. And that feels like something that's driven by a higher calling. So I'm curious if you can share a bit more about where you connected to that part of you, who you are, and where that came from.
What I've noticed, yeah, you bet. What I've noticed is that not just me, but you, all of us, when we undertake the work of growth, when we recognize there's something out of order, and maybe many things out of order in our life, and we make the determination to do something about it, and we start healing, we start leveling up, or getting the help and the growth we need, it seems always that at the same time there arises in us a desire to serve others, to help other people. For me, after a couple of years of really intense work and therapy and some things, rehab and just some support, I started feeling like, I'm getting better. Took a couple of really intense years. I sure could help other people with this journey. I could use this to serve others that are busted in some way, like I was, or some related way. And I hear that often when people talk about their own invitations and their own journey, literally in the same breath, they say, and I want to help other people with that. And there seems to rise up in us at the same time. And I didn't know what that looked like. So as that desire started to come up in me, I started wondering, what can I do? And the first thing I explored was meditation. So I wrote some books on that and created a meditation course. And then I thought, well, what else could I do? And the word coaching came up in mind. Maybe that's coaching. Gee, what does that look like? And so I explored, and this is back in 2009 and 10 now. What does that look like? What is that? And so I looked it up and attended some coaching classes in school and that kind of thing to explore the idea of being of service in that context. And that's where the whole thing started. And I had not been an author before that. So I wrote those books on meditation. And then I just felt like writing more stuff. And as I did that, I began to write more and more. And after I'd written 6 or 7 or 8 books, when I'd go to conferences and things, which I started going to because of, the growth conferences and coaching things and all that stuff that are all over the place, people would start asking, oh, gee, how do you write so many books? And so I said, well, let me show you. And it was usually at lunch or dinner. I'd get a napkin and I'd draw some pictures on it and show what the process that I used. And what happened is somewhere between half and all the people at the lunch or dinner table after I got done drawing pictures would say, can you help me with that? And so what I realized is I had a system. And so I thought, oh, okay, I should write that book. So I did. I wrote a book about the process of discovery. Like, how do you look at your own life and look at the big events, the pivotal events, the things that have either been good or bad or shaped you or invited you, that kind of stuff, and a particular way to look at them. And then in the desire to help people, I realized that everybody's got their own journey. And the way I say it is the story and the growth from the story, the events of your life. I call it the story of your becoming. And more than the story, as you mentioned earlier, it's the growth that you choose from the story. That's the best gift that we have, because it is our lived experience. Everything else I learned how to do. I've run a recording studio. I've done all kinds of stuff, but it's really that thing over there. I can talk about it, but our lived growth and experience is our best gift. So that's was sort of the beginning of that. And it's one of the most fun things I do is to connect people past the idea of I don't have enough, I don't matter that much, my story or my journey isn't very interesting. All of that crap that comes up in people's minds that's not true, but lives there loud, to help people get past that and to connect with and then share their own growth.
It's so interesting that the story we tell ourselves is sometimes holding us back. But when we share our story, there's so much power to it. It's when you think about how we built, and I feel like there's some it's like the universe has a bit of sense of humor. It's almost like, we tell ourselves a story to hold ourselves back, but actually when we share our story, there's so much power to it. It's just I love the irony of life sometimes. But I'd love for you to share, a lot of people are going through a lot, and you mentioned earlier about you said it differently, but for me, as we go through the shift that the planet is going through is kind of reflected in the shift that's happening internally for all of us. And I feel like we have a choice of allowing the shift the planet is going through to consume us, or focusing on what's happening on the inside. And right or wrong, whatever you choose is perfect for you, right? But I'd love for you to share, if somebody that's listening is going through a shift and really kind of can't see a way out, what would you advise them? What do you do to kind of guide you, help you on your journey? Kind of anything you want to share that maybe will help people through this phase and truly help them to connect to who they are and understand that they're a powerhouse and the story is important. What would your advice be?
The thing that, at least for me, was most important, and that I find often, is to start with loving yourself. Because these difficulties that we've been through and the stories that we've had or been given surrounding them never include loving yourself and truly, deeply, honestly loving yourself, even if there's all kinds of stuff that you think you would have done differently or wish you hadn't done or somebody did to you or whatever. Like accepting the truth that you're a divine creation. You are here on purpose right now, and it doesn't really matter what has happened before this minute. So if listening to this right now, you're in the middle of a transition or an invitation or a moment of dark night or whatever, the place to start is to love yourself. You are powerful. You're important. And it's easy for me to sit there and say that, but if you just sit with that for a minute, you're not an accident. You're not broken, regardless of what you've been through. And so the place to start on, that I start with people all the time, is creating a lens through which they can love themselves a little more. And the companion with that is the forgiveness, because we carry this monster guilt for everything we did or didn't do, and resentment, anger, frustration, revenge, or whatever toward others for stuff they did or didn't do. And I don't care who it's directed toward: anger, revenge, negativity, self-loathing, shame, all of that just holds us down like a big, heavy, wet blanket. And so loving yourself and learning the processes of forgiveness is where we almost always have to start.
So true, right? Falling in love with yourself. And I always recommend, I feel like sometimes we really complicate life. So for me, loving yourself is about prioritizing you, doing something that lifts your soul, whether it's time in nature, whether it's time in meditation, time in journaling, making you the center of your world. And it's kind of goes against the grain of how we created, right? We need to put everybody else first, ourselves comes last. But just doing something simple for yourself is always so powerful. So what's your routine to truly connect with you? Anything you want to share that you do on a regular basis that truly allows you to connect with the deeper version of you?
Yeah, In this 18 years now that since that event in 2007, there's two things that have been the most important and continue to be the most important. One is the creation of what I call a document, a declaration of who I have chosen to be. And this is not the same as anything you've ever heard of before. Like I ask people about that, and they maybe have been to some conference where they create, I am a powerful, that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with those words, but they almost always come from a place of, I'm saying cool stuff that if somebody else hears it will be impressive. And that doesn't change you. So there's a lot of work and forgiveness and love and allowance and walking in nature and all those things you said to gently come to a place where you're willing in language to acknowledge your blessed divinity, to acknowledge your opportunity, to acknowledge that you are beautiful where you are, regardless of what has come before. And I found that writing it and rewriting it, and it's not, you don't need anybody's approval or agreement. This is not about anybody else. This is about your choice of declaration of who you are. And it's like, for me, it's like between the center of the soul and the center of the universe, like creating that kind of a document. The second piece is, okay, cool, I got a thing now. And yes, I'm going to change it as days, weeks, months, years go by because I grow up and things change. So the language might change. But the important thing is what you ask about, which is how do you use that? How do you create yourself? And what I do is I have a daily, we have cycles. We sleep and we awake. And while we're asleep, we do all kinds of stuff, energetically in the physical body, spiritually, but we're not conscious. And so what I choose to do is every day when I wake up and become conscious, I have a daily creation process, DCP. Some people call it a morning ritual, morning routine, and I don't use those words because they're so cliche. It's a very intentional way that I create myself. And it has to do with the language in that document. It has to do with divinity, and it has to do with aspirational, how I'm choosing to add good to the world. And, I've got a podcast too, and books that I write and all that stuff. But I connect deeply with that. And it involves meditation. It involves using the document that I have. It involves connecting to the divine. And here's the difference. It is not a checklist. I got a morning routine. Okay, check, did all that stuff. For me, it's outcome based. And what I mean by that is I don't end my daily creation process until I have heard the voice of God, till I have felt connected to my higher self, until I've sent notes I've used the acronym SPEM, spiritual, physical, emotional, mental. Spiritual connection, some physical work to honor the body. Emotional is relationship. So I send love notes and to people and social media and Messenger and WhatsApp. That makes it really easy to just nurture or repair or do something that sends love into the world. And M is mental, and I've got a stack of 30 or 40 books that I'm in the middle of all the time. And I just use them to stimulate my mind. And so I use that acronym, SPEM, to create myself. And I never skip. It's not like a luxury I do once in a while. And the reason I don't, I used to, but the reason I don't is I don't like how I feel if I not do those processes. And I want to feel connected and on purpose and in line and whatever you want to use for words. So that process is what I use.
I love it. And you got me thinking, because when I do one-to-one work with people, I work on their four bodies: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's the same as you. And it's just, I've never created an acronym, but I always start with the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And it kept me thinking, wait, if I create that algorithm, it's going to sound, it's going to sound like PMS. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to come up with something different. But yeah.
Well, I do spiritual first because, for me at least, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
And I got to do that first. I'm not telling anybody what else to do, but And sometimes I integrate it if I go for a walking meditation or if I'm laying on the floor doing some martial arts stretches. I did martial arts for a lot of years. I might be praying or reciting my document at the same time I'm leaning into some physical stretch, and I might marry those, and I might be thanking the divine for my body at the same time. And what I notice in that spiritual part is names come to me. Names of people for the emotional part. Oh yeah, I got to talk to so and so. I got to love so and so today. Oh, I haven't whatever, and it might be repair. Maybe something went wrong. So the notes are love notes, they're nurturing, they're repair attempts. There's something, but when you do them from that place of spiritual connectedness, then your words are loving and joyful and powerful and all that cool stuff.
No, I love it. I mean, so with the work I do, the reason I start with physical is sometimes the karma you're holding on to, it's the physical for me is like, it's the vessel for your soul. So it's like before you get to the deeper spiritual, you kind of got to talk to the ego, you've got to understand the physical, then you've got to understand the mental. So that's why I do that order, because it's that I love the spiritual. I'm all about guiding the soul.
No,
I love
I
what I
get
do
it.
today.
And I sure understand that. Yeah.
I mean, there's just a beauty in, but I've got to go through the earlier process first before I get to. But it's such a beautiful, beautiful vibration. The thing I wanted to also mention is sometimes we're waiting for this big, to hear stories like yours, Kellen. It's like sometimes we're waiting for this big epiphany, this big flash in the sky or this big experience like you described it. And I have my own experience. I just want to kind of, as I guess, come with a health warning. Look, not everybody goes through a massive awakening. Your awakening, if you're listening, could come in little phases. And for me, I like to get people to focus on the moment. Stop waiting for this big epiphany. Your awakening is happening now. It's happening in the moment. So I always encourage people to, your story is your story. So how would you, and all the people you're working with, and how do you get people to focus on their story and not get consumed and wait for this big flash in the sky, and kind of focus on whatever they're going through is perfect for them? What would your advice be? How do you guide people through that?
I love the piece you just said. Whatever you're going through is perfect for you. I don't think the big flash in the sky is anything to be longed for. What my notice is that you and I, we all get, it comes with a health warning. You and I, we all get little nudges, little spiritual intuitions all the time.
Yep.
And when we ignore them, they might get bigger and they might get bigger, and you might end up with a baseball bat. Okay, but why would you wait? Because I can tell you that my journey from that place, I glossed over it by saying it doesn't fix anything and you have to do the work. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
Like, that was not fun. It was not easy. It was give up a million times. When I use the language, crawl over broken glass, like, you don't fall up that mountain. And I treasure the little tiny nudges I get, and I look for them and I lean into them. And so if you're feeling even the little by this conversation or something else going on in your life, inspired, nudged to talk to somebody, to do something, to try something, to love yourself a little more, to put yourself first, as you said earlier, if you're feeling any of that, lean into it and say yes. Say yes now, because I can tell you that the big flash doesn't change who you are. It just gives you a different vision of possibility, and you still got to climb the mountain.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. It's that, the way I say it, the universe gives us little nudges, and if we don't, they become little pushes, they become little shoves, and that's when the kicking starts. So we don't want to get
yeah, 100%.
Let's try not to get to the kicking part, because it's not. It sounds, it's like when we talk about it afterwards, it sounds like, it was ease and grace. All of a sudden you got this, you left work, and that sounds pretty cool. But it's a let's just say it's not as we're giving you the abridged version. Let me put it that way. So there's a lot more to it for sure.
Blood on the floor. The way I talk about is blood on the floor. I wouldn't do it again. Yeah. When I look back 18 years, okay. But I wish, having looked at that, I say to myself, I wonder what would have happened if I'd paid attention a year, 2, 5, 10, 20 earlier. I was 52 for crying out loud when that happened. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Just as a side note, I can't believe 52, you said 18 years ago. So you're 70? I mean, that just blows my mind.
I'll be 70 in December, so not quite. Wow, my birthday's in December.
Yeah. Just you're bear in mind what you put your physical body through. Yeah, well done for looking after you. I guess is and it's interesting the parallels in stories, right? I mean, I was in the corporate space for a very long time, and I always wonder why did I need to spend so long in that space. And the recent nudge I've been getting, and I don't know if I'm resisting or not, but is the corporate space needs a lot of healing. Especially when we talk about a shift that the planet's going through. And I don't know if you're getting a calling, but there's definitely, I mean, it's like clients who made redundant in the corporate world who want to go into the healing space. And it's like I had 2 clients in the same week, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's a message there that the corporate space needs healing. So I'm curious what you're feeling about the corporate energy right now in terms of what the shifts that, as we're going through this big planetary shift, what are you seeing in the corporate space?
I think the corporate space needs massive healing. I think the greed and the poisoning, the push to ignore everything. I know there's things like B Corps, and there's some people that are trying to make positive moves in that direction, and I applaud and support that. But by and large, both nations and corporations that are bigger than some nations are focused on greed, on the extraction economy instead of the renewable economy. I have a lady who just wrote a book from my book challenge in February. She's just finishing it, and it'll be published in the next few weeks. And she calls it the renewable you. And she makes, comparisons to the extraction economy that is exactly what you're talking about. How much can we mine in terms of depletion? And we're depleting not only the planet, but we're depleting the collective human spirit. We're depleting the energy. We're mining it to death and leaving it as husks on the side of the road. And the cost of that is more and more and more obvious and painful. And so the renewal is, we have to get leadership. And, exactly how to do that, I don't know. If you talk about what we just talked about, do we need a catastrophic wake-up call? A planetary catastrophe wake-up call? Why would we wait for that? Because these are the nudges, what you just described, what you're feeling. We're living in this extractive world, and we're not replenishing. We're not doing for the world and the collective humanity what we're just talking about, doing for us individually. So yes, you are getting those nudges, and so am I. And how to do it exactly, I don't know. I've got some ideas, and I'm doing some things, and I'm sure you are too. But yes, the call is there, and we are wilting under the pressure of our own greed and stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I recorded a podcast last week. I think time's so weird right now, but with a couple of clients who are leaving the corporate space but want to kind of maybe heal the corporate space, and it's interesting. I mean, the way I'm feeling it, I think changing large corporates overnight is a tough one. But the way I see it is finding individuals or finding small teams within the corporate and having the ripple effect. i.e. changing a small team within an organization with the right leader and has a ripple effect. And I feel like that's what I did in corporate space. And maybe over time I'll think bigger, but it's just that I feel like I'm going to touch billions of lives with the ripple effect of just, because otherwise if you don't want the change that we're trying to implement to overwhelm you. So focus on things you can change would be always my recommendation. So, but yeah, I love the synergy. I love the kind of, like I said, I don't plan these episodes. Whatever question comes to me comes to me. So,
I think
but
you're 100% right. And we have to do what's in front of us. Like if
yeah,
the opportunity in front of you or me to change a small team that's going to ripple for one company or two companies or something and starts making a noise or starts making a difference or a different ripple at a different frequency, then
yeah,
do that. We can't
yeah,
wait till some magical thing lands, just like you said. So I agree with you.
yeah. And it's interesting the nudges, and we talked about listening to the nudges. I mean, I used to travel our head office. I used to travel to Raleigh in North Carolina like once a month. Crazy, right? Once a month, I'd be a week or two in the US, and it just so happens I'm going back there in maybe 10 days time. So actually, no, less than that. I go there on Saturday with 5 days time, and I'm going there for a friend's wedding. But again, that's just following the nudges too, right? I'm like, well, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason I'm going back. So it's like, just if you follow the nudges and kind of ask a different question, maybe you start to understand where the universe is trying to direct you, and you go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much magic in our world, right? If we're open to the magic.
Say yes. The answer is when you get to nudges, don't question them. Say yes. And I don't mean you don't do stupid things, but your inclination is to say okay instead
Yeah,
of no way.
100%. Make it. I mean, if part of my language, but if it's not a hell yes, make it a fuck no, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so Ken, I'd love for you to talk more about what's coming in your future. Kind of what are you working on? Anything you want to share? I mean, I'll include your details in the show notes, but what's coming up for you, and how can people work with you and interact? What does that look like?
So, several things. There's a URL, kellenfluckigermedia.com, if you want to see everything that I'm up to, the books that I've written. And there's a contact form there if you'd like to chat. I'm easy to find on social media because when you have a name like Kellen Fluckiger, you can't hide. So I'm not hard to find. And you have spelled the name right. What's coming up for me? I'm running a book challenge this week. I'm on track to start a university in January, and it's a university for coaches. Because I think I just finished a book that'll be out in 2 weeks called Coaching and the Rise of AI. And what I think is that by Christmas of 26, so about 14 months from now, 95% of coaches who are coaches today won't be able to make a living. And the reason is because AI is so good at doing all the things that most coaches rely on, checklists, systems, all the kinds of procedural activities. Then AI is going to blow us out of the water on that. It's faster, it's better, it writes all of that better. The only thing that's going to be left is people who have chosen the difficult path of true embodiment. Like when you are the product and you live as the product of what you teach, then you're going to carry energy and power that the LLMs, the AI can't touch. And that means that you carry power all the time. It's not a jacket you put on. It's who you have decided to be. And so this university, I hadn't decided if I'm going to call it the Phoenix Coaching University or Ultimate Life. It's built around a model of becoming. Like if you've decided to be in the people encouragement business, which is one of the names I give coaching, okay, that's a choice. And if you're going to stay in that business, you got to become that thing as who you are. It's got to leak out of your eyes and your mouth and your pores, and that's who you are. And nobody's going to make you be in that business. But if you're going to be in that business, you're going to have to deal with the fact that this gigantic revolution has happened, just like VCRs disappeared. They rose up in the 80s and 90s, and it was a whole industry that came and evaporated. Why? Because technology changed. Well, this technology is going to radically gut the entire middle and transform the coaching industry. And if you or me, if we want to stay in the business, then we have to become the product of what we teach. And that's what the university is aimed at. It's aimed at those 5% who want to learn that or sharpen it or whatever it is. And that's what I felt called to do. It's interesting because for 10 years, people have told me, oh, you need to start a coaching school. And I said, no way, never, under any circumstances, not interested. And about 4 months ago, before I started this book, 3 in the morning, I woke up and hard, like you wake up that way, and spirit wakes you up. I sit down next to the bed and this whole thing, and I thought, oh, crap, I guess I am. And so the book's done and the whole thing, and I've already created most of the curriculum and the shape, and it's going to open in January, and we're going. So that's what's coming for me.
I love the nudges, and I will love the 3 a.m. wake up. I mean, I'm often awake, so actually most days I'm awake at that time. I love the connection to source. I love the little nudges. It's so beautiful. AI is interesting. So many people are fearful of AI, and for me, AI is going to be whatever you expect it to be. If it's going to take over your world, it'll take over your world. For me, I feel like it's an extension of my channel. So I have no shame in connecting with ChatGPT or wherever. But my words are always my words. They don't come from another place. I mean, like, we didn't really talk about this episode, whatever's going to come through. None of it's planned. And I feel as long as you're authentically yourself, nobody's going to take that away from you. And if you're fearful of AI, then sure, maybe you'll get what you're looking for. It's just, but I love your idea of guiding people to be themselves. That's what I feel you're doing, is like, if you're authentically yourself, you can guide whoever you want. But you have to, like with mentors and coaches, I found we need to go through things at a deeper level to really guide others to go through it. And it's not good or bad, it just is. And it's that. But I love the intention. That's such a powerful, I'm excited for you to get that out and really to guide people to, because I feel like we're all light workers, right? We need that. We need to shine our light, and we need to have that intention. So I love that for you. I'm excited to see where that goes. So I love your energy. I love your vibration. I love what you share with the planet. So thank you for sharing your light. I'm going to be on your podcast whenever I release this one, whenever you release yours. Who knows? There's a divine timing to everything. But I'm glad we've connected. I'm glad you're sharing your light, and thank you for sharing your wisdom here. I'm sending everybody so much love and light. If you're sitting listening to this episode and thinking, well, they're not really talking about me, they're talking about somebody else, I can tell you 100% that we're talking directly to you. So if you have a book in you, if you feel like, your story's right, then reach out to Kellen. He's such a beautiful soul. And like I said, include his link in the show notes. I'm sending so much love and light out to everybody. And Kellen, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
I want to honor you, because doing a podcast is a labor of love. It takes work, it takes dedication, it takes commitment. Your choice to be in a place where you are sending so much love and light to each listener is a choice. Like you, me, any of us, we could choose to be consumed by what's going on around us. And instead, you choose intentionally to be full of spirit and love and light and send it out. And I just want to honor you with all that I have for that, because it's true and it's real, and I love it. And I'm grateful for who you are and what you're doing. Thanks for having me here. And thank you for being who you are being, as a beacon of light and a vessel of love and a conduit of power in the world at this time.
Thank you for your kind words. I love it. Sending so much love and light out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you all soon. Bye for now.